Hello, 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 and hello. Welcome back to another episode of Graphite ASMR. Sitting here, uh, we're on episode 10 now, which is actually really nice. We've been able to get to the point of being able to get into the double digits. No longer single digits, baby. Work has started to pick up a little bit more, so today I am very much so sore. Was painting a stairwell for a bank, I think. I was technically painting it for the building owner, which is renting it out to a bank. So it's not technically like I'm working for the bank, but yeah, had to paint a stairwell that was about something close to 50, it's an open stairwell, and there's a skylight in it, so it was about 15 feet from the middle section at least. So, had to take the really long pole, so I could roll out the top sections of it, because the only thing I have is an extension ladder, and it's impossible to paint above the stairs with it. It's just merely an extension ladder. Outside of that, still working out. I'm really happy the Body Improvement Club is starting to take hold in people's minds a bit more. I got my friend, I think before I mentioned he posted a few pictures, but now this weekend he's going to be coming out, so we're going to be able to play some Pokemon card game with each other and get to play with everyone else as well. Sort of like a mini hobby club, I guess. Again, still not putting any sort of scripts together, just sort of speaking off the top of my mind. Went ahead and put on a little bit of the Beatles, just to give me some sort of like happy, cheerful kind of music, like more upbeat. Even though, like right now, I forced myself to get up at 8 o'clock. Easily could have slept like 3 more hours. Because as soon as I got back from using my arms mostly to paint this stairwell, I then went ahead and since it was Tuesday, I did push-ups. It's chest day for me, which then went through incline, decline, wide, normal, box push-ups, and all the different sorts of push-ups. Like, you end up, I think, at the end of it doing over 100 in a matter of like 30 sort of some odd minutes. And then I also add on top of that doing like 17 incline, 17 incline and decline. So I add more workout. I add more push-ups to it too. But as far as everything goes, everything is going really well. Started researching more about Greek mythology. Came across a more alternative view of our history that it was very interesting. So I just like a lot of just information, spreading out my horizons of understanding. It's not very good to get into the habit of only ever seeing the world through a single lens. I like to see how everyone else views the world, and extrapolating what would be the most best answer and common denominator to explanation of existence. Which is funny because it actually ends up getting into very deep and philosophical understandings or conversations, getting into a very wide understanding of what morality is, again, not much one to believe of the concept of good and evil. It's merely actions and things that either must happen or do happen due to choice, and then and then everything is through a matter of balance, keeping you do some sort of similar to the karmic system, where if obviously do something bad, you build up negative karma, which then eventually comes and reclaims, and then good karma has to justify or adjudicate the negative karma, which then creates a space for more negative karma to create. It's the yin and yang balance, the salt water of our earth to the fresh water that comes from the sky. It's a matter of pseudo ebb and flow of good and what we would perceive as good and what we would perceive as bad, even though they're just mere happenings of all of the same system. So it's very, very. I was looking into plagues today, sort of like just because it honestly just caught my eye. I don't know why. I just sort of like, plagues, and then started running through it. It's very interesting that the correlation that never gets established is that the plagues rose and fell along with if our morals were high or low at that time. So the lower our morals became, plagues and strife became more and more abundant. As our morals were higher, strife and plagues were very, very limited, if not almost didn't exist. So and plus on top of that, we can look at it on a smaller scale. If you conduct, in something I've been talking about in these episodes for a while, is the choices that we make determine sort of the outcome of other people's choices too. So let's say we go and someone cuts us off. Do we drive and speed up to cut them off again? Anger breeds more anger. I think it's not like this is concepts that we haven't heard time and time again. And it's funny because it's only now have I been actually listening to this and really observing how these influences or these systems in which our world exists with. It's interesting because it really feels like sometimes you become the watchmaker. You get to take the back off a watch and watch as all the gears are going about. But not just being able to have fun looking at the back of the watch and watching what goes on in the background, but to know what each piece is for and how it works with itself, and being able to appreciate the intelligent design of it too. So my apologies. I am right now. Today is a rambling day of rambling days. I am very, very tired today. So, but we won't get that down. We won't let that get us down because we still got to work out today. I might go for a walk. I might enjoy a hearty walk around the town, see whatever people are up to, see how my neighbors are doing. My one friend started getting into walking around as well, and it's really nice because he's starting to pick up on things that just you naturally miss because your mind is so preoccupied by strifes, problems, or issues. And as you begin to begin to actively weed through your problems, you begin to appreciate what a clearer mind is capable of. And it's fun because you eventually really begin to understand what humanity is like, what it's like to have humanity. Now, I'm not talking about the Dark Soul, or not talking about the Dark Souls where you go and you take a break, you get all your health back. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a respect or a healthy appreciation for the subtle nuances of people and how you could even see it like a clockmaker looking at other people's clocks. It's interesting, but how it now. I guess that's what I'm trying to do with this ASMR channel, is try to work through my thoughts and become better at speaking, so that this is merely probably just a channel just for me to test the ability to speak, so that I can sit here and as I record myself talking to this video or to the person that's listening in on this, you're just weirdly enough just kind of some sort of bystander, that this channel ended up becoming more for me to learn more about myself, more so than it is to entertain someone else. But I guess that's okay. If someone else enjoys me talking, then by all means listen. Because, I don't know, I might say something eventually that someone picks up and says, you know what, I think you might be right about this. Even though a lot of the time, I don't really, I never really consider myself correct, or it's just there's a long list of things that something has to go through before I find it to be correct. But it also isn't something where I'm a skeptic because I just want to be a skeptic. There's a lot of, I have a childlike imagination, so I really like the idea of being able to play with magic, or the idea of being able to see and witness dragons flying through the air. But at the same time, I'm highly analytical, and only the best explanations or the best reasoning, the ones that cohere to natural order, but also cohere to the understanding that we can obtain through just looking inside ourselves. And I think that's one of the biggest keys, is that people are easily manipulated with falsehood simply because they don't understand themselves enough. And I'm not trying to say this to bring anyone down, because I'm surely was in the same spot and still might be. And that's the beauty of it, is when you have this solidifying idea of what the world is like, and it's starting to harden within a framework of your mind, one little piece of information that just seems too correct. It fits so many things that are also correct, like that to be correct, just completely comes and wipes away all of it, all the progress you've made. But it's not that it destroys it per se, but it wipes the slate clean and allows you to have a fresher point of view, sort of, because it's not like you unlearned everything. In fact, actually, it sort of broke everything you already learned down into its basic understandings. So, okay, let's see. Where can I start putting my sense of reality back together again? And it's really, really interesting concept of allowing your sense of reality to actually be crushed and built back up. I think that's what a lot of people go through when they hallucinate. Their sense of perception melds with greater understandings of the world around them, even though they themselves are unaware of the lessons that they're learning unconsciously. They begin to view the world how it is. Now, granted, the world as we have it right now is not particularly kind to those that want to expand their consciousness. But the beautiful thing of it is that because of those that are still brave and willing enough to push themselves and push their relative understanding to the world, this massive, massive world around us, they start making trails and that more and more people can follow down. Our fear keeps us isolated in our own little camps, our tribal understandings. And it's the ones that venture outside the camps to go and see what other camps are doing are the ones that become wise. Because now they are not just thinking from the parameters that they grew up with, or best understand, or faithfully follow. But we now have more information that we can work with. See what does and does not make sense and what reflects against the truth that lies within the hearts of all man. There was a quote from George Washington that I really liked. And it was, "My first wish is to see this plague to mankind banished from the earth, and the sons and daughters of the world employed in the more pleasing and innocent amusements than in preparing implements and exercising them for the destruction of mankind." It was very interesting that when people are able to become aware of their greater heights and also understand where their greater lows are. We all know what it's like to be through, well, I wouldn't say everyone, but we know what it's like to feel a depression that almost seems, I think the word is insurmountably. Anyway, we all know of a depression, the void that develops within ourselves. But it's always interesting is that because we have to journey into those voids. people always express, and I hear this a lot. Oh, I don't try to work with my dark side because I'm afraid of what it's capable of. Everyone's heard this. Everyone's also even thought that thought. One of the interesting things is that I, for a very long time, knew of this concept of the void or the hole within our hearts. And it's mostly where like depression, anxiety, hindering emotions that will negatively affect us, so as long as that void existed. It was like a well of sadness that the more that was uninteracted with, the worse it became. The more you tried to push it off, the more you did what you could to curve it. It always seemed to make it worse, and then slowly you can tell that it starts to manifest within your own world. The relationships you have with other people slowly begin to deteriorate. Or deteriorate? Deteriorate? Not that you don't want the company of others. And it's not that they are growing away from you too. It's just this haze of uninterested or haze of disinterest begins to cloud your mind, and that you begin to seek and search for the quickest remedy in order to stave off the destructive force. The destructive force that is a darkness that was never corrected. And it's very interesting because you can actually see a pseudo manifestation of this darkness that we push off. For instance, let's say something like alcoholism. Why we should always be wondering why exactly are people conducting themselves in the way that they are. Why is a person angry? Well, is this what brought this about in them? Funny thing is if you begin to question it verbally, like asking, why are you so mad? Eventually they'll, for a person that's does not control their emotions very well, they would begin to project why they're angry onto you, as if there's something that you have done to enact this side of myself, right? Like that, let's say I am the angry person. Very little amount of time is attended to, as far as a person that becomes angry, very little amount of attention is brought to why you're angry, or why it, and if you do so, it only makes you more angry. Probably not the best. No, that's not correct. I'm gonna go to something else because I'm not talking about that correctly. No, there's something I missed there. In any case, so just let's go on a lighter note. Let's go with a more enjoyable and heavenly approach of how we live. So, for instance, let's say you're walking down the street and you see someone struggling with something, and you call out that do you need my help? And they take it in gratitude. and you help them out. Normally they end up, weirdly enough, they end up paying you for some reason. Never quite understood that. Like there was one time where this guy was struggling to get, he had a dumpster out in front of his house, and he was moving this door out, but couldn't get it to right into the dumpster. So I came over and I yelled at it, said, "Hey, I do need my help," and eventually gave me like $10 for it, which was funny. Mostly because, again, for some reason I never could value money. So the idea of getting paid for doing something just nice for someone else is just weird to me. So it was funny because it was like, it was after I got out of school, coming out, was going down the hill to go to a place, because I can't say the name of it, because if it did, you can really easily pick out where I am. But it was a place that was ran by the church for the youth, and it was a really nice place. It had a lot of popularity. It also had a lot of it was also very much so disliked by the people around this place, specifically because when you get a concentration of a bunch of kids, and the sort of youth pastor that ran this place was as much of a child as the kids were, but still kept it running functionally. Some incidences do like occur that just end up being stupid. It was fun. It was a fun time. Really got to enjoy other people. That's where I made a lot of my friends at the time. Really fun times. But it's times when you can, especially in a few things that I've noticed as I was in youth group. This was more of a Christian church, but would do rock concerts it was like but it was the praise band, but they would do rock music or whatever. And it was interesting because I'm not a person for devotion. The idea of, I don't like the act of devotion. I don't know. Something just bothers me about it. It seems as if, for me, devotion is to more or less train oneself to become better. To me, that's more of a devotion than anything. Any song that is praised, nothing compares to you truly crafting yourself like marble. At least that's my thoughts on it. So I would normally stand there and just watch everyone else participate in it, because I wanted to understand the sense of what they were trying to experience. And I never, the only thing that ever was there was the air became denser, and it seemed as if light shined brighter when it was darker, when we were all working in unison. Whatever that might be, to be singing a song or conducting a prayer, or and everyone was really getting into it like that. That's when it seemed like the air, the space in which we existed in, started becoming more concentrated. There was another scenario where I've noticed this was, and luckily I actually cannot remember what the retreat was, but it was going camping, but it was a Christian retreat. And the thing that was interesting was there was they did the same thing. It was everyone would congregate, have a rock band, and then we'd have the pastor go and give a. It was always interesting. Because one of the reasons why I liked my church was because the pastor was a heavily informative person. Not in a sense of condemning people, but providing information in order to grow. And I think that style of teaching is by far the best. And it was nice because the man was obviously like fairly respectable, had kids, I have personal history with him as well because of let's just say he knows me. Let's just leave it at that. Nothing like terribly bad. Nothing like terribly bad. It's just interesting. But let's when we conduct ourselves in like a negative way, so we could become angry at someone else and we lose control of who we are. It's always amazing because as we continue to do that, we continue to darken the world around us. But when we start conducting ourselves in a means of others or higher spiritualism, we begin to brighten the world around us. And it's interesting because it's this ever flow because there's no yin without the yang. There's no times of darkness without great lights coming through, like the Renaissance playing out right when the Black Plague was happening. Some of the greatest feats was trying to capture an idea of something larger and greater than ourselves, and not just ourselves, but our collective understanding, to attempt to begin to describe a world from just the perspective of a monkey. It's fascinating. And then there's an existence that's much even more grander than that, and that we can perceive and begin to understand it, but we are only limited to the level of comprehension and intelligence that we have. And we only have a finite amount of time in order to capture all this information, be able to construct a means of understanding the reality in which we lay ourselves in. And it's great. It's fascinating because it's funny because the more we're able to teach each other the possibilities and sort of expressing ourselves, just the ability of expressing ourselves and our thoughts is just something fascinating. I can sit here in front of a mic and I can talk softly and quietly so that I'm not disturbing the people around me, and that I am also capable of talking in a means that allows me to be okay with expressing myself on a deeper meaning and a deeper level. And as the series continues, I'll be able to construct and more convey a more cohesive understanding of certain aspects that I've specifically understood or began to understand and are starting to gain mastery of. It's amazing. Like, truly living is one of the greatest experiences that I have ever encountered. And it's beautiful because when we rid ourselves of the idea that we have to live for others, or we rid ourselves that when we begin to rid ourselves of the shackles that we keep ourselves down with, like how much money am I making? Am I good looking? Am I adequate in the eyes of another person, essentially? Once we begin to rid ourselves of that, when we begin to rid ourselves of the idea of failure, is just interesting. Because it does, like, you begin to look at when you mess up or when you begin to fail on something, you just see it as a means of ability. You see it as more of a means of somewhere you can grow, and you begin to concentrate on that specific area until you become better at it, which then you continue, and then you go through everything else then you just start basically again existing until you come against something else that challenges you, and you take on that challenge. It's such a fun experience where, like, it's basically like the greatest video game that's ever been made. And it's weird to, like, officially, because I probably got a little loud there, because I've had people say that before, and I've heard people say that before. I know people equate life to like this never ending like game or something like that. Like what's that? Sympathy for the Devil. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. It's an interesting concept when you start to look at the idea that someone can change, and that the more they change, the easier and the quicker change comes to that person, to the point where you can literally change within just mere minutes of new information. And it's wild. And it's a wild experience, because if this is what the equivalence of becoming enlightened is, then it's easily obtainable. Anyone can obtain this level of understanding. I mean, if I came from what my memories, what my life was like, if I can obtain this level of understanding and enlightenment coming from where I came from, then there's no excuse for anyone else to be able to. Oh, man. And the funny thing is that the more I become removed from myself, past myselfs of the past, I begin to weirdly forget what it was like to be like that, to live like that, to be that existing. But not like it wasn't to be living for nothing. To be living without any purpose, essentially. And even today, it's weird. I have a purpose, but the funny thing is, the purpose that I have is not like it's something that I can obtain in this lifetime. It's a purpose that transcends the mere idea of just being a 3D ape. It's an idea of trying to change and begin making a game of myself, my own. Sorry, a friend of mine literally just messaged me now about how he went hiking and went up to a specific peak. I'm not going to mention, because he lives out in the mountains. He went up and hiked up a mountain and just messaged me that the view never gets old. That's always good. I'm glad. It's really funny, because just like just a month and a half ago, I started just doing very, very large changes, specifically to myself, and I wanted to test. This is what's the term for a personal story, and taking information from that and then trying to prove a hypothesis to it. It's, I forget what the terminology. I know what it's anecdotal evidence. I know this is anecdotal evidence, but anecdotal evidence. But one of the things that I wanted to see if it was possible was, I wanted to test to see if there was a phenomena, I forget how you say that. There was always, so let's just go into the story. We started a Minecraft server, and I started always, just because of what I normally do is I always go off and I start building huge structures. Whether I end up completing them or not, I just like to go and build monolithic ideas. So the one time what I started doing was I know it's so funny because I never tell people what I'm doing. So it just one day, poof, my idea, you start seeing the results of my idea, and I really enjoy it because no one is ever ready for it. And it's so the one thing I was doing was I was taking all of the bottom blocks of this lake, it was into the sea, but I was replacing all the blocks with glass. And as I was doing it, I was taking to the point where I replaced the whole sea floor with glass on the top block. And then I went down into the mine shaft, found where if I would just dig straight out, I would go right out to the sea of glass, and have an entire ceiling of the sea floor as the ceiling of my underground garden. So I started working on that, and this is not something that's small either. This was it to get to where I had it. It took months just to do that, just to replace all the glass and then start digging out underneath. I think I might start the Graphite gaming channel and just upload my different Minecraft stuff. I don't know. But what I've noticed is that as I was continuing to work on this, then I would get random people to say, hey, let me just give you some help. And the more I kept doing this, the more people would end up helping. So they would end up clearing out a specific section, and then I would just continue working on whatever I was working on, which was also probably digging more and more, till a point where I started working on another project, and I was able to, people then began to more and more just want to help out with the project. And then, so I started noticing this, and I started noticing that people's creative mind started working more and more and more, almost alongside with how the bigger the project that I was working on. So they would see me and see what I was doing, and then they would go and look at what they have, and how big my idea was how big their idea was becoming, and then till a point where their idea, because all my friends are competitive monsters, becomes more and more elaborate, or more and more bigger things and stuff like that. It was just an interesting thing to watch. So a couple weeks ago, what I decided to do was, a friend of mine needed help installing her floor, so I did so. Well, eventually, I Obviously, if you because as a contractor, if you're installing any flooring, you have to make sure that the first square is perfect, that it goes in correctly. You have to make sure that the floor is clean and stuff. A lot of things that they weren't taking in consideration, and then as they were watching me do it, started realizing how much larger of a project this actually is, and how when done right, it looks really, really good. Well, as I'm doing this, it's always interesting because I would keep working, but people would then want to come over and help and join and see how far they would end up going. It was always, and I don't know if it's anything specifically for me, but it seems as if you just start doing something, people that are like-minded or are just inspired want to join in. All you have to do is just start doing. Make something. I don't know, just start conducting change in your own life, and then you can start seeing change happen around you. That's so interesting. But, yeah. So let's see, 46 minutes. We got still a couple minutes left. So, let's see. Yeah, so when in doubt, talk about the rabbit. So I'm actually kind of worried about this one thing, is, I'm eventually going to be going and visiting my sister in Texas. Congratulations, you now know that I'm not living in Texas because I said I have to go visit it. So, with going and seeing her, that means that I have to figure out a means of keeping my rabbit, his messes, clean. So, unfortunately, I feel bad about this, but I feel like I'm going to have to bring the cage out. And I'm going to have him in the cage and then have Andrew watch him and make sure that, oh god, that's going to suck because he doesn't like that cage at all. Oh man. God, I feel bad. Maybe, I don't know. It's really tough because I'm trying to think of because rabbits, they don't like change to happen too quickly. It's to a point where they'll actually like lose their fur, but Gimli has always been okay with that for some reason. I don't know why. Like, for instance, extended car rides cause rabbits to like become overwhelmed with anxiety, and eventually will die from it. Wow. Luckily, Gimli has always just not cared. He gets stunned a little bit, and then he starts, like, examining his surroundings, and then just kind of, as long as I'm there. But the issue is I'm not going to be here for, like, 2 weeks. That's what I'm afraid of. So, I'm just going to have to figure it out, honestly. I'm just going to have to buckle down and work on it. Oh, maybe I could do it like that. Yeah, I guess that would work out. Yeah, I might just do it that way. Okay. But, yeah, so that's about my rabbit. He's doing good. He's still a big... I'm trying to regulate how much food I give him because I don't want him to become a big old chunky boy. Even though big old chunky boys are cute. I want to make sure that his diet's appropriate. I don't want him to... Because the rabbits can survive for, I think, like 12 years or something like that. So, and this... I've only had him for, like, roughly 1.5. So... I'm kind of curious as to, I'm actually kind of curious I've never had a pet that was mine that lasted longly. I did have a rabbit at one. No, I had a rat at one point, which was Patches, and eventually cancer came for the rat, and eventually he just had to be put down. It's unfortunate, but that's just how life goes. You never. Plus, on top of that, it's just, I after that experience, I never liked the idea of having a pet that you just cage up. It never sat well with me. It seemed like it was a death that was unavoidable. It was unavoidable, but could have been avoided. Though I did care for it, it was a very cute rat, and he really liked me and whatnot. But it just seemed like it was. Well, I guess you could look at it like this: is that it was a learning experience, and I learned what I needed to from it. So, well, hopefully, Gimli can forgive me after the 2 weeks of not being able to see me or me not being there. I'll have to make sure that my roommate comes up and visits him and pets him and does all the things that I'm not here to do. I'm not here to be. But yeah, so yeah, we have pets in our lives that come and go. Like my one dog, the dog that I grew up with. Oh man, Dalmatian. I think he was a mutt. He was like a Dalmatian mixed with something else. Because he had the fur, he had really saggy skin, which was uncommon for Dalmatians, because he had like a lot of playable skin, which was really cute. But he also had like the Dalmatian print, and it was so cool. It's a great dog. My God. Though there's so many times he destroyed my stuff. It was great because I would end up if I had something that I liked, it was normally gone because he decided it was his chew toy. But he also would sleep with me at night, which was something that I really enjoyed. Was that I sleep on my side, so my legs are curved like a C. But most of the time, Sarge would come up and he would lay there right in the crevice of my legs, and then turn me into his personal bed, even so much so as to put his head up onto my thigh, like as if I was his bed. There was even times where he would end up sleeping, like working his way up the bed, and then eventually pushing me off of the bed by like pressing his paws against the wall and start shoving me off. Those were, oh man, that dog was great. And we had him for years. Man. In any case, but eventually he succumbed to just old age, wasn't eating, his eyesight was beginning to go, and so my mom had him put down, and I ended up digging his grave. I still know where he is. It's funny. It's so interesting because I bet you the dirt has probably still gone undisturbed. And it's weird. It's weird to be completely okay with the idea of death, and okay with the mixed emotions that come with it too. Multiple times, for instance, when my brother-in-law because he married my sister. My brother-in-law, it was interesting to go to his funeral because it was, because I always feel removed from the situation. I was able to go up to directly his mom and give her a hug that I think she was waiting for, because she kind of just started breaking down right there. And it was interesting, because for me it's just a matter of just trying to stay strong and not to break down, because there has to be someone there that people can look to and know that it's going to be okay. And it's weird because, especially in our day and age, we are told that men don't show their emotion because they're incapable of accepting it or dealing with their emotions. But in all honesty, we just deal with our emotions differently. We, as men, are meant to be more stoic. Not that we're trying to run away from our emotions. It's just that we know how to work through them more logically, more straightforward. Either there's no reason to feel this way because it's not conducive to what needs to happen, and so I shouldn't feel that way, and we, through our willpower, will change ourselves if the scenario needs it to be. And so I find it interesting when people say that it's like, oh, well, men need to cry more. Well, actually, I find that men need to cry less. We need to be not stones, but we need to be like stones, but allow both stone made of water, to allow that the incoming scenario is going to involve its own scenario of emotions and complications, but the better and better we handle these complications and our emotions, the better we become. Similar to not becoming infuriated and angry when someone cuts you off, but not to bottle the emotion and hide it and keep it within ourselves, but to combat it and say no. There's no reason to expend the energy for these specific thoughts. There's no reason to get caught up into these negative versions of myself. I need to keep and hold control, because if I don't, then who will? If we all just throw our hands up and we say, oh well, that's all we got, that's the only thing we can do, that's all there is, then how did we get here? How did we achieve greater and greater heights, and how did we become enlightened when it was the darkest times? It's a lot of these questions that I believe I now have answers to, and it's interesting because I always keep asking and making sure that I'm true, and that I stay straight, and that, because when you become enlightened to specific functions of how the universe works, it becomes that what you do has more and more weight. The intellect that you eventually begin to achieve can be used or abused. With, I think it was a Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's absolutely the truth. But it's funny because obtaining the power is normally, obtaining power is funny. Obtaining power the idea is that it will eventually corrupt you. But what if you went about it the other way and you took on the responsibility for that power before receiving that power? Does that mean that that power eventually will be granted to you because you have proven responsibility over it? An interesting kind of way of looking at the world is that the more we craft ourselves to become better and better, do we become greater and greater and stronger beings for it. There was an idea that was brought up in Fairy Tail where it was one of the 7 sages. It was during the arc of Nirvana. It was the stone, the metal stone or steel stone guy. He was bald, and he was fighting the other solidification guy, which would always say, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." One of my favorite characters, but I love that guy. I have seen the error of my ways. Oh yeah. But yeah, the guy basically says the one with the stronger ideology is always going to be more victorious, or at least stronger. So I wonder if people held themselves to stronger and stronger ideologies, do we become stronger? Do we become more capable, or is it because we bring on more responsibilities? I'm not sure. There's a lot of different interesting questions that arise when we start holding ourselves accountable, when we start more and more theories arise when we look deep inside ourselves to better understand the world around us. It's very interesting. Well, in any case, we're coming to the end of the video, and I hope that you really enjoyed yourself. I hope you enjoy me sketching, though, even though it doesn't seem like I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm doing a lot more than I have ever done for a single piece. So, alright, well, everyone have a great Wednesday. That's when I'm recording this audio, so just have a great Wednesday, and everyone, Godspeed.